You are already a storage owner who hasn't yet closed on their first deal. And you need to see that, feel that, and believe it. The only way, Dan, this doesn't work for you. And by the way, I'm speaking to you as well. You that's listening, that's might be watching this, the only way this doesn't work is if you quit. Whoever said that quantity of time is what relates and equals storage success? Who said that? I've never heard that. That math doesn't compute for me. It's not about the quantity of time you spend. I think a lot of it is about the quality of time.
If only I had more time, I could have made this happen faster, but that's at the cost of what? I have a wife, I have a 3-year-old daughter, I have a baby on the way. So, life is not about working and working and working. It's kind of a building pressure that I'm putting on myself.
I want to just give you permission, brother, to release the pressure valve here, because right now I don't believe the pressure is serving you. Let me ask you, what's the point of building a storage business that creates freedom if it costs you the things that matter most? And on today's podcast with Dan Wentzel, we're going to put a pause, so to speak, on his storage journey. And we're going to talk about something that oftentimes gets in the way of not just new people that come into the storage business, I should say, with an ambition to buy their first facility, but it even happens to experienced storage investors and operators, where sometimes in pursuit of this goal that you have, and if you're listening to me, it's probably your first facility. It could be your second, third, fourth, or even fifth deal. But in pursuit of something bigger, we tend to lose sight of what's around us that's most important. And for you, that could be family, that could be your kids, your relationship. In some cases, it might even be your health. And so how do we build this in a way where we can have the best of both worlds? Because I truly believe that we live in an and world, meaning we can have a thriving storage business and we can be successful in our marriage, relationships, as parents, whatever we do in our athletic endeavors. I believe you can have both. I don't think you have to sacrifice one for the other. Now, I will say, and I'm sure this will come up in the course of our conversation, that there are times where we get into a particular season. And if you're starting storage, as an example, then you're going to be in a season where you're probably going to be putting in more time, energy, and effort than somebody who's been doing this for years and years and years. There's a learning curve. There's a lot of action, massive imperfect action that you have to take. And so be okay with that. I really don't believe in this idea of balance. I think, and this could be controversial, Dan, and when I bring your voice into this conversation here in a minute, I'd be curious your thoughts. But by definition, when we're focused on one thing, we're going to be off balance in other areas. And I think we need to be okay with it being a seesaw, where right now I'm on the podcast interviewing Dan and I'm talking to you. I'm not parenting right now. I'm not having a conversation with my wife. I'm focused 100% on Dan, on you that's listening or you that's watching. And so I'm off balance right now when it comes to things in my personal life or even in my storage business. Right now, I have the hat as a podcast host, and I'm thinking about asking insightful questions of Dan and guiding this conversation so that you can get the most out of this. When I'm off this and I get on a call with my assistant, I'm 100% focused on her. And so I'm off balance now and I'm not having a conversation with Dan. Hopefully that makes sense, but I want to go ahead and shoot a hole in this theory of balance. Forget balance. When you're all in, be all in. And when you're not, you're not. And so hopefully that gives you maybe a different lens from which to think about this idea of balance. But with that being said, the inspiration behind this podcast was something Dan mentioned. I believe it was on our last podcast, where I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he made mention to the fact that life can seem very chaotic right now. He's got a lot of balls that he's juggling, so to speak, when it comes to the storage business. He's hired a virtual assistant, and hopefully you've been listening from the beginning of season 2 here, where we've been going down this journey, on this quest, so to speak, to see if we can help Dan buy his first storage deal. And he's gotten so close getting under contract on a few facilities. And so we're going to get an update from him now in a second. But the inspiration behind this particular show is to talk about how you can pursue your goals with storage, build a thriving storage business, and also have an awesome life. Because what's the point of building an incredible business that gives us freedom and cash flow and everything we're after if we don't have time for the other things that are most important? So with that being said, Dan, that intro went on a bit longer than usual, but I wanted to set the stage for everybody and even set the stage for you because I just gave you notice that this is what we're going to be talking about. And I think it'd be a great conversation to have, very raw and unfiltered. And I want you to just, as always, man, speak from the heart and share with us kind of like how life can be a bit chaotic in the midst of you trying to grow. I shouldn't say try, in the midst of you pursuing this storage goal. So before we get to that conversation, give us an update, give us some progress updates, some wins. What do you have for us since our last conversation?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that intro. So since the last time we spoke, I've been in touch with the attorney for the facility that I'm trying to get under contract or moving forward to get under contract. And the attorney has confirmed that she's reached out to the seller's son, who has an email address, since the seller himself does not. And they're working on going through the contract together and making some notes on it. So it's taking the right steps forward. So that's a positive. I created the LLC to use to facilitate the transaction and sign on the contract. So that entity officially exists now, which is again going in the right direction. And then I posted on the school website this actually just today before we hopped on here that I have a wholesale deal coming, just to gauge interest and get some people's figure out who might be interested once I hopefully have the deal under contract in the near future.
Amazing. Let me give you guys a little bit more insight. When Dan says the school community, we're on a particular platform called School, and this is only for our Storage Wins community, like our coaching clients, where people are in there and we do something called #give, #ask, and #win. And oftentimes when our community members get deals under contract that don't quite fit their buy box blueprint, then they are offering them up first to storage winners inside of the community, which I think is a huge benefit and value add. And Dan, you've seen firsthand, I think there's been 4 or 5, maybe 4 storage deals that have been wholesaled to other Storage Wins community members. So, and that all boils down to the relationships that are built. And then when you see an opportunity, jump on it quick. Right. And make sure that you establish connection with that wholesaler, that broker, that person. Let them know you're serious about this. Underwrite the deal, go through your process, but communicating with confidence, I think, is a really, really big thing. And so, man, I'm excited to hear that not only is the ball moving forward and the deal is progressing, and I know that you've had to jump through a fair amount of hoops and challenges with that one, but then now you're working on a second one that is going to be a potential wholesale opportunity. So congratulations, man. That's huge.
Thank you.
All right. So with that being said, on the last episode, you made mention to something that stuck with me. Like I alluded to at the top of the show, you talked something about the personal things that are going on, life. You're chasing deals. You're building this business. Can we unpack that a little bit? Maybe give us a little bit of insight into Dan Wentzel's world when it comes to business and personal. And of course, I thought I had my phone on silent because this is not my first podcast, and then my phone rings. So we'll leave that in. We're not even going to edit that out because that is life. Life will throw you curveballs, and so that is on me. With that said, brother, give us a little bit of an insight into what has you feeling the way you're feeling. Just fill in some of the gaps and bring people into your world a bit.
Yeah, that's a great topic that has been something I've struggled with for quite a while. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurial people who go out on their own have faced something similar. But being able to, since there's no official clock in and clock out, to feel like the time I have is enough time to be spending on self-storage, I haven't made progress as quickly as I expected with this, with buying my first deal and next deal, and so I often think, if only I had more time, I could have made this happen faster. But that's at the cost of what? I have a wife, I have a 3-year-old daughter, I have a baby on the way. So, life is not about working and working and working. It's about working so we can enjoy the better, or the other things in life, like family and priceless times. So it's a challenge balancing all that while still feeling like I'm moving forward at a pace that I'm satisfied with when it comes to self-storage.
Yeah. I appreciate you being, number one, vulnerable as you've been from the first episode of season 2, and you've continued to show up and be vulnerable and share the wins along the way, share the challenges, some of the frustrations that you've experienced, because I'm certain people listening can relate to that. We've all felt a certain level of frustration, sometimes feeling like, what's that saying? Like where you're out over your skis, or you've out hit your coverage or something along those lines, where just things are moving at a pace faster than you can process. And it feels like you're in this, like the eye of the hurricane. And brother, I've been there. I can't even tell you how many times. And I don't know that ever goes away. I think that because we can't control the outside. We can only control the inside, right? The older and wiser I get, at least I like to think I'm getting wiser, the more I realize I have very little control over many things. My thoughts, my actions, how I react to something. Man, outside of that, I don't have much control. Like everything, it's God's plan, and I'm coming along. And so life can be challenging, business can be tough. And so the question becomes, how can we have the best of both worlds? How can we build an awesome life that we don't have to take a vacation to get away from? But how can we build a life while at the same time build a successful and profitable storage business? Let me just ask you another question or two before we start to unpack this. How long have you been feeling like you're in the eye of the hurricane? And those weren't your words or mine, but how long has it been feeling like I need more time in the day? Which, by the way, we all get 24 hours. Jeff Bezos gets the same 24 hours that Alex Pardo does, that Dan Wentzel does. And so wishing or wanting something that is impossible, I would encourage you not to spend any time and energy on that, but to focus and ask yourself maybe a better question. How can I make the most out of my 24? Where am I being inefficient that if I could automate, outsource, delegate, or delete whatever that is that I'm spending time on, I can reallocate that time and those resources either into my storage business or into my wife and into my family, into the things that fill you up. So I have some practical suggestions for you and for those listening, but how long have you been feeling this?
It's been quite a while. I've been looking for my first storage deal for 3+ years and really focused on storage as my primary day-to-day work for 2 years, and did not expect to be here 2 years later still looking for that first deal. It's kind of a building pressure that I'm putting on myself, that I just feel the longer I go, like I see comparison's the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. I've learned.
I wonder where you heard that
from
one.
Alex Pardo.
Which, by the way, I didn't make that up. I heard that from somebody, so you're passing along the credit, but go ahead.
And I continue to keep that in mind, but I also see so many others coming into storage, getting their first deal, and it's hard to not let that, at least when I see it, to let it affect me a little bit. So it's really adding pressure. And so yeah, I felt that for I'd say probably at least 18 months, 2 years.
Couple of things I want to reflect back at you. You mentioned how you've been pursuing storage for 3 years, but in all honesty, it's really been about. I remember there was a point when Dan, when you and I started working together, that I think maybe you had sent 15 to 20 offers in like a 2-year period or something, right? I don't know, maybe even a little longer. And really, if you look at the progress you've made in the last 6 to 9 months, I mean, if you were running a mile, I feel like you got an eighth of the way through your first 2 years, and the last 6 to 9 to 12 months is when like you've ran all the way up into like right before you complete that mile mark. In other words, a lot of your progress and gains have been this year. Would you agree with that?
No question.
In terms of mindset, in terms of your process, your system, how you're approaching it, the offers you're making, the fact that how many deals now this year alone have you been back? I mean, you've performed on-site due diligence on 2 facilities. I mean, brother, you are right there. Okay, so I want you to recognize and acknowledge that the pressure that you feel is self-inflicted. And look, believe me, man, I get it. There is the reality of, hey, I'm focused on this and I'm not currently making money from it. I'm not currently generating an income. And I understand the reality of the pressure that situation can put on the household, can put on a relationship and everything else. And so I don't want to discard that because it's real. And I understand that. And it's external. And so focusing on the external and not something you can control, some might argue can be wasted energy, unless you allow that to fuel you. And so I first want to just acknowledge, man, what you're feeling and going through, because I think everybody listening, I know I can include me in there. Like, I've experienced that. I have felt that. And I want to just give you permission, brother, to like release the pressure valve here. Because right now, I don't believe the pressure is serving you. I think it's adding stress. It's adding more weight to your shoulders. And dude, you're a pretty tall guy and you're a strong dude and you're pretty athletic, but like there's only but so much weight one can put on itself before like you start to feel the effects of that. And so, man, I know it's easier said than done. That's not lost on me, but I want to give you permission to just let some of that weight go that you're carrying right now. And I would encourage you, we're not going to get into that part of the conversation, but you know where my faith lies. And I believe everything I have in my life is as a result of God. The Bible talks about, I think it's in Matthew, having the faith of a mustard seed. And I saw something on Instagram this morning where a lady was breaking down that Bible verse, and she talked about how powerful a mustard seed is, because when you plant a mustard seed, years later, or however long it is, not only can it grow this massive tree where now birds can like hang out on branches, but the roots, how they spread so wide, and how if you wanted to rip that tree up over years, those branches and the roots can spread so wide that it's very, very difficult and challenging to completely just uproot that tree. And how those trees typically can withstand a Category 5 hurricane or anything that the environment might throw at it. I need and want your faith to be as strong as that tiny little mustard seed. And again, this wasn't the direction I was planning on going with the podcast, but it's what's been placed on my heart, man, is that like, you keep your faith as strong as possible, no matter what you go through. Because when you keep your belief and focus on Him, there's nothing that isn't possible, right? My favorite Bible verse, Philippians 4:13, right? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so I know you're a man of faith. And so, and by the way, if you're listening to this and you're not a man or woman of faith, then I would encourage you to open your mind and heart to what a relationship with God could look like. And if that doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. You know, take what serves you and maybe leave what doesn't. But I'm not going to be shy about sharing what I truly believe here. And so I think this is an opportunity. This isn't an X's and O's podcast or conversation. There's always things we can do to improve and make some improvements around the margins or around the edges when it comes to what we do in the storage business. That's not what's holding you back right now. I think a lot of it has to do with mindset. I think you've added so much pressure to yourself and you're chasing it versus letting it flow because you want it to happen like yesterday on your time frame. And that's difficult, brother. Like we can't always, in fact, we can rarely control certain timelines. All we can continue to do is put our best foot forward, take that massive imperfect action you always hear me talk about. But right now I want you to shed some of that weight because I feel like you're trying to run this race with like a big restraint around your ankle, and you're moving slower because you're carrying this weight. So I just got back from the Dominican Republic where and I think I know you know this because I shared it on our Storage Wins call, but it was a missions trip where we trekked this mountain called Pico Duarte, which is the tallest mountain in the Caribbean. It's about 11,000 feet. And it's the trek. It's 27.6 miles that we do over 3 days. And it's an extremely rocky terrain. It's very physically demanding. This is the second time now I complete it. And it's interesting. You see the people that trek this thing and the people that are overweight. I mean, they're suffering. Like I'm suffering and I'm not overweight, right? And the people that are overweight, and kudos to them for getting out there and doing it. But you could tell the agony and pain they're in because they're carrying all this extra weight. That's an analogy that comes to mind as it relates to your journey in storage right now. The difference is, I guess it's not a difference. They've chosen that weight, right? But similarly, you're choosing to hold on to this weight, even though, like I acknowledge, it's your current reality. Right? You've been at this and right now you're not generating an income from it. But here's what I do know, man. When you get over the finish line, all it takes is one deal in some cases. Maybe 2, 3, or 4, but it doesn't take 15, 20 deals for you to have a completely different financial situation, more options, more freedom. And so I want to hand you back the baton now. With what you heard me share, what's resonating? What's something that we can build on moving forward here as it relates to what you're currently feeling right now?
I know one thing that's going to be hard, as we've talked about on the podcast, that I have a baby coming. The baby's coming on Thursday.
Woo! Hold on, stop.
So we're 3 days away.
So of all the storage wins, right? Of all the wins we can share, if that's not the biggest one, if that isn't like God's miracle and blessing, like I don't know what is. So first off, I know the baby's not here yet, but congratulations, man. I mean, you're 72 hours away from baby girl number 2. So you're already a girl dad, but like now you've just elevated yourself within the girl dad community. So 2 girls, man, that's incredible. That's incredible. When you look into that baby's eyes, man, it's going to give you so much more added motivation. And I have shared this with you, man, numerous times. I'll share with you again. You are already a storage owner who hasn't yet closed on their first deal. And you need to see that, feel that, and believe it. The only way, Dan, this doesn't work for you. And by the way, I'm speaking to you as well. You that's listening, might be watching this. The only way this doesn't work is if you quit. Is if you just stop, you throw your hands in the air, and you tell yourself some lie or some BS story like I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not lucky enough, or I'm not worthy, or any BS like that. Because these are just, human beings are meaning-making machines. We see something, we hear something, we think something, and we create a meaning about what that is. And that story either helps and serves you, or holds you back and keeps you down. So we get to decide. And so do you, man. So all that being said, congratulations. I can't wait to talk to you again, to hear about the baby that you and your wife are bringing into this world. And that is going to give you so much more fuel and motivation, as if you needed more. God just says, here's another dose of it.
Yeah. We're really excited, and it's been tough to focus on a lot of things right now. Yeah. With that at the forefront of our mind, a lot of time during the day. But one of the things that also scares me with that, aside from the sleepless nights that are coming, is that I know my time working on storage is going to become much less in day to day. So
you ready for
part of that pressure?
Keep going. Go ahead. Part of that pressure.
Yeah, part of that pressure is knowing I've had the most amount of time each day lately, and that's going to change. So it's a scarcity mindset,
100%. 100%.
But it's just the math. I mean, if I have half the time each, yeah.
Let me challenge that. Whoever said that quantity of time is what relates and equals storage success? Who said that? I've never heard that. Right? So just because you're putting in X amount of hours into storage and it hasn't worked for you, whoever said that because you put in less time, it's certainly not going to work for you. Like that math doesn't compute for me. It's not about the quantity of time you spend. I think a lot of it is about the quality of time, how you're thinking about it, how you're approaching it, working smarter, not necessarily harder. In fact, here's the gift I have for you. I happen to think that when you have less time to do something, you tend to ask yourself different questions to get different results. You ever had a trip coming up and all of a sudden you become hyper productive the week leading up to that trip, even the days leading up to that trip? Brother, before I went on this trip to Pico Duarte, I have been recording. Dan, I think I may have shared this with you and with the Storage Wins community, but for months now, I have been recording a course that obviously you and everybody in the Storage Wins community is going to get for free, but I've been recording a course walking people through the Storage Wins model, something I'm calling cash flow maps. And right before that trip, I finalized the final module and video of that course, along with about 6 podcast episodes and some other stuff. And that's just some content. That's not even like the actual coaching business of like fulfilling and being there for you guys, the actual storage business. I'm in the middle of selling a facility and everything else I have going on. But I got so much done in that week because I knew I was going to be unplugged for 5 days and I wanted that time and I didn't want that. So I got so productive. So productive. It's not that I worked around the clock. It's I just didn't waste any time. I didn't waste any time. I was just super, super dialed in. So I want you to let go of this myth that just because you're going to be working less, it means less productivity, because that's just not the case. That's a story you've told yourself and that you've chosen to believe up until now, hopefully.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So I think so far the big takeaway for you and maybe for those listening is to do a thought audit. When you think something, audit and ask you, is this helping and serving me? Or is this a limiting belief or a story I'm telling myself that actually isn't aligned with my goals and what I'm seeking to accomplish? And that's a perfect example. Hey, I have baby number 2 coming. I'm going to have some sleepless nights, which by the way, you probably will, but you might not. Like, you know, I've heard, I have some friends that have had some pretty quiet babies. It's not typical. I certainly had a bunch of sleepless nights with my 2 girls, but you may or may not have sleepless nights. Let's assume you do. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now I'm going to be busier because I have another baby and my wife's going to require more of me and I got to show up as a man and a father and everything else. And so that means less storage time. Does that mean I'm going to be less productive? Does that mean it's going to be harder for me to accomplish my goals? If you instantly think, yes, audit that thought. Well, what about that do I believe? How do I know that to be the case? And you're going to quickly coach yourself through it and be like, that doesn't necessarily mean that. In fact, I view it as the reverse. I view it as you're going to have a constraint. And so because your storage business is such a priority, I believe you're going to figure out a way to pack in what you're currently doing in the time that you have. In fact, I'll take it a step further and tell you that I believe you'll find more efficient ways and smarter ways of working than you're currently working. I don't know if it's Newton's law or there's a law that basically says like you will take up the amount of time that you have.
Parkinson's law.
Is it okay? Parkinson's law. Newton's is something else. Oh, sorry. So not Newton. I'm not a scientist and thank you for the correction. Parkinson's law. If you have it up, can you read Parkinson's law? I don't know if you Googled it or if you put it on ChatGPT, but essentially if I give you 24 hours to do something, you'll likely take up all or most of that 24. If I give you 2 hours to do it, you'll probably get the same thing done in 2 hours.
Yeah, work expands to fill the time available.
There you go. Well, so what you're telling me is I didn't say that as eloquently as what you just did. Is that what you just told me? No, and you'd be 100% right. Yeah, say that again. Work expands
to fill the time available.
So you might be going from 20 or 30 hours available. Let's just say 25 hours available, which by the way, I want to put this out there. If you're listening to this, you don't need 25 hours to succeed in storage, right? You see what I did there? I'm certain there's somebody listening to us, watching us that immediately thought to themselves, oh, wait, I need 25 hours a week to devote to storage in order to succeed. Thought audit. Is that true? Where did you hear that? Does that serve you? Right? So if I told you, Dan, I'm kidnapping your new baby girl and you have 10 hours a week to devote to storage and be as hyper productive as possible to move this thing forward, could you get that done? You don't have to answer because I already know the answer. Yes. Yes. Give me my baby girl back. I'll figure this out in 10 hours. I know you will. So it becomes a matter of priorities. Okay, it becomes a matter of just like being crystal clear and maximizing the time we do have. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that makes sense.
What about that either was a takeaway for you, was insightful, or just put a bow on this part of the conversation?
I liked how the idea, even within the last 2 weeks, I've been thinking about this Parkinson's law, and that's the only reason I had that at the top of mind when you mentioned it. I didn't think to how that's going to apply to become hyper-focused with the time that I do have available.
Yeah.
And that's what I just have to keep in mind to keep that focus.
Yeah. Remember that exercise you did a couple months ago, 2, 3, 4 months ago, with like auditing your time? Like, I want you to continuously think about be conscious. Don't let life just take you along. Like, be hyper aware and conscious and intentional about your time, because the time, man, is one of those things that it comes and goes and you can't get it back. Money's going to come and go. You're going to get more of it, whatever. Once that time is gone, like, we can't get back the last 5 minutes of our life where we're here. Like, we can't, it's gone. All we have is what we have right now and hopefully moving forward, which even that isn't promised, as you know. So how can we be so intentional about the time we have and making sure that we don't allow anything or anyone to rob essentially from our family? Because this is the time we have. And so I need you to be like, just create boundaries and say, hey, these are my working hours. And I would also encourage you, as a practical matter, is to have a conversation with your wife and allow for flexibility, because when the baby needs to feed, or when the baby needs to like be changed, or when the baby needs love and attention, which is going to be pretty often, and that's a blessing, then you roll with it. That's your priority. But have a conversation with your wife about like, hey, how can I carve out intentional blocks of time where I'm able to focus on the business so I can keep that moving forward, while at the same time being here for you and your daughter and your new daughter and the family, and making sure that you're present, because that is time you will never get back. As a father of 2 girls, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, what I would give to experience like that period that you're about to experience now. Because dude, it's like, I remember one of my daughters looked like a football, and now she's big. She's big, you know. Dude, it goes fast. It goes fast, and I want you to be present, and I want you to enjoy that. I don't want you to be bogged down by all the business stuff. And that's going to force you to ask better questions. It's going to force you to maximize the time you do have. I know that you recently connected with, and I won't mention his name, just, I don't think he'd care, but just, you know, I didn't talk to him about it, but you recently connected with somebody else in the Storage Wins community that has a thriving single family business, making well into the 7 figures a year. And he's got a very unique skill set when it comes to marketing, sales, leadership, lead management. And I know that you guys have had a couple conversations and you're talking about potential collaborations and synergies. And so that, I think, speaks to one of my favorite books behind me, Who Not How by Benjamin Hardy. Maybe that's your who, where now you don't have to focus on certain things, but you can focus on what you're really, really good at and what you enjoy. So with all that said, brother, I feel like there's so much more I want to share with you. And I think what I'm feeling called to do is to maybe even make this a 2-part episode, where on the next one, we dive deep into how you can go about creating a life first based on what you want, and then making sure that your storage business is aligned and supports the life that you want. So as the teaser to that, I find, Dan, that if I look at somebody's calendar and bank account, I'll pretty much be able to tell you what's important to them and what's the priority. So if I was to look at your calendar and bank account, where you spend your money, where you spend your time, that's pretty much a good indicator of what somebody values. Am I going to look at your calendar and just see all business stuff and no personal, no family time, no date nights, no daddy-daughter date nights? So what I like to do is start with a blank calendar and fill life in first. What are the things that are most important to you from a life perspective? And then figure out how much time you have for your storage business. And ask yourself, how do I create a thriving, profitable storage business that amplifies my life, aligns with my life, enhances my life in the time in which I have? Back to Parkinson's law. So I want to kind of just leave that with you. I think we can build on the next episode with that. And hopefully for you listening and watching, you appreciate the semi-pause from the tactical X's and O's of finding, funding, managing, operating a storage facility, because that's just the tactical stuff. I mean, you can learn that anywhere, right? But it's like, this is the stuff that I think really matters. And I think when you have strong roots in this area and you have a foundation, it's much easier to build a storage business that aligns to give you the time and freedom that ultimately you want. And chances are that's why you're pursuing storage, because it's an incredible asset class which can give you that time back. So, man, I've probably done a lot more talking on this podcast than what I would prefer to do. I want this to be more about you, and I want them to hear you. But I have so much in this area that I can share that I think can help you, Dan, and that can help others. So, man, I'll let you have the last thought here.
It was extremely valuable to talk through it and hear your perspectives on how to keep things, the most important things, as the focus, and then structure everything around that.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, look, I appreciate you listening along. What resonated with you? I'd love if you went inside of the Storage Wins Facebook group. If you're not a part of that, it's free to join. There should be a link somewhere on this page or in the show notes or below this video where you can join the Storage Wins Facebook group, or find us on social media and tag us and start a dialogue. Like, what resonates with you from this episode? How does this relate to your life and what you might be going through? And even if you walk away with just this concept of thought auditing, think about your thoughts, as strange or odd as that may sound. Think about your thoughts, but that's what you got to do. When you have a thought, ask yourself, is it serving you or is it holding you back? Is it a story you've made up that you've chosen to believe? And if so, how does that help or hurt you? And I think Dan saying, hey, I'm about to have a baby, I'm going to have less time. And so he started to believe that means I'm less productive. That means it's going to be harder for me to accomplish a storage goal. When I actually saw the exact opposite. Same situation, different perspective, different mindset. One can serve, one can hurt. You get to choose. All right. So with that being said, listen, make sure that you're subscribed, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on the Storage Wins podcast, so that you get notified every single week with new episodes. And with that being said, Dan, man, I'm excited to celebrate the birth of your baby girl. So congratulations. Keep us posted. I know that in the Storage Wins private community, you'll be hopefully sharing some pictures and sharing the update, God willing, when that comes. Praying for a healthy delivery, healthy baby, for mom to be good, for you and your daughter to be good. And man, I'm excited for what's to come for you. I know this journey has felt long and arduous, and I also know it's going to be worth it for you. And I know that quit is not in your vocabulary. It's not anywhere in your mindset. And so I'm grateful that you're plugged into the community. Be inspired by others that you see winning inside of Storage Wins. Don't feel less than, don't feel not worthy of, or not smart enough, or not this or that. That's all BS. That's all BS that enters our mind. Quickly filter it out, let it go. Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right,
Always
guys.
good to hear it again. Thank you.
I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.